The fluorescent lights buzzed above my desk, casting a harsh glow on the clutter of papers and coffee mugs that had become my work life. I could smell the faint scent of burnt coffee from the break room, a reminder of the chaos that often unfolded during busy hours. It was just another Friday afternoon, or so I thought. As the clock ticked closer to 5, I felt a tingle of anticipation mixed with anxiety. I had a presentation ready for Monday, one that I believed could turn the tide for my department. But what happened next shattered that illusion. At 4:59 p.m., my world flipped. "Grace, can you come into my office?" Mr. Thompson's voice was calm, but there was an edge to it that sent a chill down my spine. I walked down the corridor, each step heavier than the last, my heart racing as I entered his office. The walls felt like they were closing in on me. I didn't expect what was coming. "We need to let you go," he said, his tone devoid of empathy. The words hung in the air like a heavy fog, suffocating any hope I had of understanding. I felt the heat rise to my cheeks, a mix of anger and disbelief coursing through my veins. How could this be happening? I struggled to find my voice to ask the questions swirling in my mind. As I left his office, the laughter and chatter from the office party down the hall echoed mockingly in my ears. They were celebrating some success while I was being cast aside like a broken toy. I could almost hear my colleagues whispering about me, their eyes filled with confusion and pity. The betrayal stung deeper than I could have imagined. I had poured my soul into that company, and in return I received nothing but a cold dismissal. What was I supposed to do now? I felt lost, my mind racing with thoughts of revenge mingled with the desire to understand why. I wanted answers, yet all I received was silence from the very people I had trusted. My heart sank further as I realized this was the beginning of a dark journey, one that would test my resolve and my very sense of self. As I gathered my things, I could feel a flicker of determination igniting within me. I would not let this moment define me. I would find a way to expose the truth behind my firing, and I wouldn't be silenced. This was just the start of something much bigger than I had anticipated. The faint glow of the evening light filtered through the sheer curtains of my modest apartment, casting soft patterns on the hardwood floor. I stood in the kitchen, the aroma of sautéed garlic and onions wafting through the air, mingling with the scent of fresh basil from the window box. Dinner was my ritual, a sanctuary that contrasted sharply with the chaos of my work life. As I stirred the bubbling pot, I felt a sense of nostalgia wash over me. These moments, filled with the promise of warmth and stability, felt worlds apart from the tension I faced in the corporate office. At the dining table, the simple setting of white plates and flickering candles created an inviting atmosphere. My partner, Alex, leaned back in his chair, his brow furrowed in thought, a glass of wine cradled in his hand. "You seem distant, Grace. Is everything okay?" he asked, breaking the silence that had settled between us. His voice was laced with concern, and I could see the reflection of my internal struggle mirrored in his eyes. "It's just work, you know," I replied, forcing a smile while my mind raced with memories of the baby shower. The laughter, the mockery, it all felt like a storm brewing on the horizon, threatening to upend my carefully constructed world. I could almost hear my mother's voice echoing in my mind, a reminder of the expectations she had for me: success, stability, and a flawless career. "You've worked so hard to get where you are, Grace. Don't let anyone take that away from you," she would say, though our conversations had grown strained over the years. The weight of her disappointment felt heavy on my shoulders, a constant reminder of the stakes involved. As I set the table, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. My heart raced at the thought of the impending chaos that my firing would unleash. The clink of cutlery against plates was a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing inside me. I could feel my pulse quickening as I recalled the moments of camaraderie at the office, the shared laughter and late nights spent working on projects that now felt meaningless. I longed for that stability, for the sense of belonging that was slipping through my fingers. What if I'm not cut out for this? I thought, a wave of self-doubt crashing over me. The tension between my desire for loyalty to my team and the fear of losing everything was palpable. As we sat down to eat, I couldn't help but feel that each bite was flavored with uncertainty, the taste of a reality I was desperately trying to avoid. The confrontation in Mr. Thompson's office loomed over me like a dark cloud as I walked the familiar hallway, each step echoing the anxiety building inside me. The walls were adorned with motivational posters, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing within. The scent of corporate coffee lingered in the air, mingling with the faint whir of printers working tirelessly. My heart raced as I approached his door, a mix of determination and fear coursing through me. I had rehearsed my words countless times, yet they felt foreign on my tongue. I knocked lightly, the sound swallowed by the thick carpet. "Come in, Grace," he called, his voice carrying an air of authority that sent a shiver down my spine. I opened the door, stepping into the lion's den. Mr. Thompson sat behind his imposing desk, papers strewn about like fallen leaves, and his gaze locked onto me with a mixture of annoyance and curiosity. "You wanted to see me," I managed, forcing my voice to sound steady despite the storm raging within. He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled, a smirk playing at the corner of his lips. "I assume this is about your recent performance?" The words dripped with condescension, igniting a fire of anger in my chest. "No, it's about my firing, Mr. Thompson." "I deserve an explanation," I said, my fingers curling into fists by my sides. The room felt smaller, the air thick with unspoken tension. A flicker of surprise crossed his face, quickly masked by a calculating expression. "You were let go due to restructuring. It's just business, Grace, nothing personal." "Nothing personal," I shot back, unable to contain my frustration any longer. "You didn't even have the decency to inform me directly." "I found out through HR." My voice rose, reverberating off the sterile walls, and I could see the moment his facade cracked, irritation flashing in his eyes. "You need to understand the bigger picture here. You're not the only one affected by these decisions." "Affected?" I echoed incredulously. "You mean to say that I was just a pawn in your corporate game? I gave everything to this company." The weight of my commitment felt like a leaden anchor dragging me down. He sighed as if my emotions were an inconvenience. "You're being dramatic. This is how the industry operates. You should know that by now." His dismissal stung, and I felt the heat rising to my cheeks. I took a deep breath, trying to rein in my emotions. He leaned forward, his eyes narrowing as if sizing me up. "You're young, Grace. You'll bounce back, but you need to let it go. Focus on your future, not on the past." "Let it go," I repeated, the absurdity of his suggestion igniting a surge of determination within me. "You think I can just forget how you treated me? This isn't just about me losing my job, this is about the integrity of the company." I stepped closer, fueled by a newfound resolve. "I won't allow you to dismiss my contributions so easily." He chuckled, an unsettling sound that sent chills down my spine. "And what exactly do you plan to do, Grace? Go to the media?" A flash of realization hit me. He was underestimating my resolve. "Perhaps I will," I replied, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions swirling inside. "You've painted a target on your own back by treating me this way." The air thickened with tension, and I could see the gears turning in his mind. I refused to back down, knowing that this was just the beginning. "I won't be reduced to a footnote in your corporate history. This ends with me, Mr. Thompson. I will not be silenced." His expression shifted, a mix of irritation and grudging respect. I turned on my heel, my heart pounding as I walked out of his office, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I had taken a stand, but the battle was far from over. As I stepped into the hallway, the fluorescent lights flickered overhead, illuminating my path forward. I needed to gather evidence to expose the truth behind my firing and to show everyone that I wouldn't disappear quietly into the night. The stakes had never been higher, and I was ready to fight for my future. The news report blared from the television, its shrill voice cutting through the thick silence of my apartment, where shadows loomed in every corner, growing darker as the day faded. I sank deeper into the couch, the fabric rough against my skin, grounding me in the reality of what was unfolding. In a shocking turn of events, the company faces a federal investigation following the abrupt firing of Compliance Officer Grace Ashley, the anchor declared, the words striking me like a physical blow. I felt a simmering frustration bubbling within me, fueled by the chaos that was now my life. I flicked off the television, the screen going dark and leaving me in the oppressive quiet, the echo of the reporter's voice still ringing in my ears. My heart raced with every beat, a relentless reminder of the injustice I had faced. I had spent years working diligently, pouring my soul into reports that now seemed like nothing more than a hollow achievement, overshadowed by betrayal. I rose from the couch, the floor creaking beneath my feet, and paced the small space, my mind racing with thoughts of how I had ended up here, at the mercy of a corporation that cared little for the truth. A deep breath filled my lungs, but it was tainted with the bitterness of betrayal. I recalled the tense negotiation attempts, each proposal met with dismissive waves and thinly veiled threats from the company's legal team. They had brushed off my pleas for accountability, treating my concerns as mere inconveniences rather than the serious issues they were. I could still hear Mr. Thompson's condescending laughter echoing in my mind, a constant reminder of the wall I was up against. It was infuriating. In the kitchen, I poured myself a cup of coffee, the rich aroma filling the air but doing little to soothe my racing heart. I leaned against the counter, the cool granite grounding me as I contemplated my next move. I could feel the weight of the world pressing down on me, a suffocating blanket of uncertainty and anger. I needed to fight back, to reclaim my narrative, but how? The company had resources, power, and connections, a formidable opponent in this battle for justice. My phone buzzed on the counter, pulling me from my spiraling thoughts. I glanced at the screen, a message from Sam. "Thinking of you, let's meet up." A warmth spread through me at the thought of my best friend, a lifeline in this storm. I quickly typed a response, agreeing to meet at our favorite coffee shop, where the scent of baked goods and freshly brewed coffee always felt like home. I needed that comfort, the familiarity of shared laughter and understanding amidst the chaos. As I made my way to the cafe, the cool evening air brushed against my skin, invigorating yet unsettling. The streets were alive with the sounds of laughter and chatter, a stark contrast to the turmoil in my heart. With each step, I felt a flicker of resolve rising within me, pushing back against the frustration that threatened to consume me. I would not let them win. Upon entering the cafe, the warmth enveloped me, a stark contrast to the biting chill outside. The familiar clatter of cups and soft music filled the air, and I spotted Sam at our usual table, a concerned expression etched on his face. I slid into the seat across from him, taking a moment to gather my thoughts. "You saw the news, huh?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah, I did. Grace, this is serious. What are you going to do?" Sam's gaze was steady, filled with the weight of unspoken support. I could feel the resolve hardening within me as I met his eyes, a silent promise passing between us. "I'm going to make them pay for what they did to me. I can't let this slide," I replied, my voice stronger than I felt. As we spoke, the tension in my chest began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of purpose. Together, we could devise a plan that would not only expose the betrayal, but also reclaim my sense of justice. The stakes were high, but I was ready to fight. I would not be silenced any longer. This was just the beginning of my journey to reclaim my power, and I could feel the fire igniting within me, ready to take on whatever came next. In the aftermath of that chaotic meeting with my colleagues, I felt a gnawing sense of urgency pushing me to seek a resolution. The remnants of Mr. Thompson's mockery still echoed in my mind, but I also felt the weight of my colleagues' apprehensions. I knew that if we were to confront him, we needed to be united. So, I decided to gather everyone at my apartment for a support session, hoping to channel our collective frustration into something constructive. The evening air was crisp as I set up my living room, the faint smell of lavender wafting from the candles flickering on the mantelpiece. I arranged chairs in a circle, each one a potential seat for the comrades who had shared my burdens. I glanced at the clock, anxiety twisting my insides as I awaited their arrival. How would they react to my call for action? Would they see it as a path to peace, or would they be frightened off by the looming shadows of corporate retaliation? When they finally arrived, their expressions ranged from curiosity to skepticism. Mark was the first to speak, his brow furrowed with uncertainty. "So, what's the plan, Grace? You think we can actually get through to Thompson?" His question hung in the air, heavy with doubt. I could feel my heart racing, the stakes of our meeting crystallizing before me. "We have to try, Mark. If we don't stand together, we risk losing everything. This situation is bigger than just us." I could see the conflict in their faces, the desire for stability battling with the fear of confrontation. As I spoke, I felt the familiar rush of anger bubbling beneath the surface. Why was it so hard for them to see the truth? I tried to keep my tone steady, suppressing the urge to lash out. "We can't let him dismiss us or our work. We need to find a way to present our concerns to upper management without it backfiring on us." Sam chimed in, her voice softer yet filled with determination. "What if we start by documenting everything? If we can show them the patterns of his behavior, maybe they'll listen." I nodded, grateful for her insight. There was a glimmer of hope in her suggestion, a small spark that reminded me why I was fighting in the first place. As we discussed strategies, I could feel the room shifting, a sense of camaraderie growing among us. The initial tension began to dissolve, replaced by a collective resolve to take back our narrative. But still, seeds of doubt lingered. What if our efforts were futile? My gut twisted at the thought, a reminder of the risks we faced. In that moment, I caught a glimpse of the reality we were up against. The corporate machine was relentless and Mr. Thompson's power felt insurmountable. But as I looked around at my friends, I knew I couldn't back down. I had to believe that together we could challenge the status quo, even if the odds were stacked against us. The stakes were high, but the potential for change ignited a fire within me that I couldn't ignore. And while the fear of retaliation loomed over us like a dark cloud, I felt a flicker of hope, a belief that we could reclaim our dignity and bring the truth to light, no matter the cost. The air in the corporate boardroom was thick with tension. Each breath I took felt heavier than the last. Sunlight streamed through the glass walls, illuminating the polished surface of the long table where the stakes of my career were about to be laid bare. My heart raced as I stood before my colleagues, the weight of the moment pressing down on me like a vice. Their faces reflected a mix of concern and curiosity, waiting for me to take the first step. I could feel the pulse of fear thrumming beneath my skin, but hiding was no longer an option. "I'm done playing by their rules," I declared, my voice steady even as dread coiled in my stomach. The decision to confront Mr. Thompson had crystallized in my mind, a fierce flame igniting my resolve. I could see flashes of doubt in my colleagues' eyes, echoes of their loyalty battling against the reality of our situation. But I was determined to reclaim my power and hold him accountable for the mockery he had made of our work. As I looked around the room, the faces of my peers morphed into something more resolute, a silent agreement forming between us. The memory of those awkward, forced laughs at the baby shower surged to the forefront of my mind, reminding me of the injustice that had unfolded before us. I would not let his arrogance go unchallenged. Today we take a stand, I continued, my voice rising with conviction. We will confront him together and we will expose the truth behind this farce. The fear that had gripped me began to dissipate, replaced by a burgeoning sense of empowerment. I could feel it coursing through my veins, electrifying me with every word I spoke. The murmurs of agreement among my colleagues grew louder, the tension in the air shifting from despair to determination. In that moment, I knew I was ready to face the consequences, no matter how daunting they might be. "This ends with me," I declared, the words ringing out like a battle cry, a promise to myself and to my team. We would not be reduced to mere footnotes in someone else's narrative. With a newfound clarity, I turned toward the door, each step feeling like a declaration of war against the corporate machine that sought to silence us. The risk of losing everything loomed large, but the thought of inaction was far more terrifying. I was ready to embrace the chaos, for I had found my voice amidst the noise. The time for action was now, and I would not back down. In the dim light of my home office, I spread the contents of my thoughts across a large whiteboard, the cool surface a stark contrast to the warmth of my racing heart. The faint scent of burnt coffee lingered, a reminder of the chaos I was trying to navigate. I felt a mix of excitement and anxiety churning in my stomach as I began to outline my plan. Each bullet point represented a step toward reclaiming my power, a way to expose the truth behind my firing and hold Mr. Thompson accountable for his mockery. As I stood there, markers in hand, I could hear the echoes of laughter from the baby shower, taunting me, making my resolve even stronger. I recalled how my colleagues had reacted, their uncertain expressions and hesitant nods as I spoke about the DOJ's involvement. They needed to see that this was not just about me, it was about the integrity of our entire department. I had to rally them, to show them that we could be more than just a punchline in Thompson's game. "I need allies," I muttered under my breath, pacing back and forth. My fingers traced the outlines of my notes as I envisioned bringing my colleagues together. Each name I wrote down represented not just a person, but a potential ally in my quest for justice. "Mark will stand with me and maybe Sarah too. If I can just get them on board, we can confront him together." The thought sent a shiver of anticipation through me. But doubt crept in, whispering that I might fail, that they would back away when push came to shove. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to focus. I had to believe in this plan, to trust that my colleagues would see the truth as I did. The stakes were high, and if we didn't act, we risked losing everything we had fought for. With a rush of determination, I jotted down strategies, weighing the pros and cons of each possible approach. I envisioned our confrontation, the moment I would demand accountability from Mr. Thompson. I could see how it might unfold, the tension in the air thickening as I laid bare the consequences of his actions. My heart raced at the thought of standing up to him, knowing it would require every ounce of courage I possessed. As I finished my notes, I stepped back to assess my work. The board was filled with my plans, a tapestry of hope woven into the stark reality of my situation. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins, a fire igniting within me. I would not let fear dictate my actions any longer. This was my moment to reclaim my power, my chance to turn the tide against the mockery that had belittled our efforts. The plan was set in motion, and I was ready to execute it, come what may. The day of reckoning arrived, and the atmosphere in the corporate boardroom was electric, charged with unspoken tension that hung like fog in the air. I stood at the head of the long, polished table, the flickering fluorescent lights above casting a harsh glare on my determined expression. Colleagues shuffled in, their faces a mix of anxiety and resolve, each of them knowing that today we would confront the very man who had mocked our hard work. My heart raced, pounding a rhythm of anticipation as I prepared to unveil my plan to expose Mr. Thompson and reclaim our dignity. As the last person took their seat, I cleared my throat, the sound echoing in the hush that had settled over the room. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," I began, my voice steady and resolute. "Today, we stand not just for ourselves but for the integrity of our entire team. We cannot allow Thompson's mockery to go unchallenged, especially with the DOJ looming over us. It's time to take back what he has tried to belittle." The murmurs of agreement rippled through the room, a wave of solidarity washing over us. I noticed Mark nodding, his earlier doubts replaced by a fierce determination that mirrored my own. The stakes were high, but so was the strength of our unity. I felt the tension in the air shift, transforming into a collective resolve, a fire igniting within each of us as we prepared to confront our oppressor. We've gathered evidence of Thompson's dismissive attitude and how it has jeopardized our compliance efforts. I continued, my voice rising with passion. We will present this to the board and demand accountability. We will not be reduced to a punchline any longer. The words felt powerful, resonating through the room as I watched my colleagues lean in, their faces glowing with a newfound determination. As we strategized our approach, the weight of the moment pressed down on me. I recalled my earlier doubts, the fear that had threatened to paralyze me. But now, standing in front of my peers, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. This was not just about revenge, it was about justice and restoring our integrity. I had to believe that our collective voice could pierce the corporate veil that had allowed Thompson to operate with impunity. Finally, the moment arrived. We filed into the boardroom where Mr. Thompson awaited, his expression a mask of arrogance. I could feel my pulse quickening, but I held my head high, determined to face him head-on. "Mr. Thompson, we need to talk about your recent comments and their implications for our department," I announced, my voice firm. His eyes narrowed and I could see the flicker of annoyance cross his face. "What is this about, Grace?" "It's just corporate humor." I stepped closer, the air thick with tension. "It's not just humor, it's a reflection of how you view us as expendable. We are here to demand accountability for what you've done and how it impacts our team and the company's reputation. We will not stand by and let our work be trivialized any longer." As I spoke, I felt the support of my colleagues behind me, a solid wall of conviction. Thompson's expression shifted, surprise mingling with anger. He opened his mouth to retort, but I pressed on, refusing to back down. "The DOJ is investigating, and your dismissive attitude has jeopardized everything we've built here. We deserve better, and we demand respect." The confrontation spiraled into a heated exchange, my heart racing as I stood my ground against the corporate titan. Each word was a step toward reclaiming my power, a declaration that I would no longer allow myself or my colleagues to be belittled. The chaos of the moment swirled around me, but I felt a fierce satisfaction bubbling up within. I had taken action, and regardless of the outcome, I had stood up for what was right. The aftermath of my confrontation with Mr. Thompson unfolded like a slow-motion train wreck. News of my bold stand had spread through the office, igniting a mix of astonishment and admiration among my colleagues. I could feel the weight of their gazes on me, a blend of support and apprehension as they navigated the treacherous waters we now found ourselves in. The once mundane office chatter morphed into hushed whispers, and I sensed the shifting dynamics of our team. The fear of retribution loomed over us like a dark cloud, but so did a flicker of hope. In the following days, the media caught wind of our compliance department's turmoil. Headlines blared about the potential Department of Justice investigation, and the stock price of our company took a nosedive. Watching the numbers fluctuate on the screen, I felt a bittersweet pang in my chest. My actions had consequences, and while I had sought to expose the truth, I never anticipated the ripple effects would be so profound. The loss of millions felt heavy, like a weight pressing down on my conscience. As I sat in my home office, the once familiar scent of burnt coffee now felt like a reminder of the chaos I had ignited. The clutter on my desk, papers strewn about, compliance reports unfinished, seemed to mock my attempts at regaining control. I reflected on the journey that had led me here, the moments of doubt and fear that had fueled my determination. Yet amidst the turmoil, I found a strange sense of relief. I had stood up for integrity, for my colleagues, and for myself. In a final meeting with the board, I laid out my concerns and the need for reform within the company. My voice was steady, the adrenaline of the confrontation still coursing through me. I could see the flickers of acknowledgement in their eyes, a recognition of the need for change. As I concluded, the atmosphere shifted and I felt a sense of closure wash over me. I was no longer just an employee, I was a catalyst for change. Walking away from that meeting, I felt lighter. The burden of secrecy had been lifted, and while the consequences had been severe, I had found my voice. The chaos would linger, but I was ready to embrace whatever came next. My journey was far from over, but I had reclaimed my power. I had faced the storm, and though the future was uncertain, I knew I would navigate it with newfound strength. The world outside felt brighter as I stepped into the sunlight, a sense of hope blooming within me. I had fought for truth, and in doing so had begun to forge a new path, one where I could inspire others to do the same. My story was just beginning, and I was ready to write the next chapter, armed with the lessons learned from this tumultuous experience. As I stood in the vibrant community center, the walls adorned with colorful banners celebrating resilience and unity, I felt a sense of renewal wash over me. The warmth of the afternoon sun streamed through the large windows, casting golden rays that danced on the faces of those gathered. It was a gathering of support, a testament to the strength found in shared experiences. I could hear the soft murmur of voices, laughter mingling with the clinking of glasses as people exchanged stories of overcoming adversity. A sense of hope hung in the air, palpable and invigorating. I took a deep breath, inhaling the rich scent of freshly brewed coffee mixed with the aroma of baked goods. The atmosphere buzzed with energy, and I felt a smile creeping onto my face as I watched familiar faces, my colleagues, my friends, and even some who had once hesitated to speak up. It was a reminder that we were not alone in this journey. We had forged a community bound by the desire for truth and integrity. I recalled the chaos of the past months, the nights spent wrestling with doubt, and the fear that had once gripped my heart. But standing here now, I realized that I had emerged stronger, fueled by the support of those around me. As I took the stage, the room quieted, eyes turning toward me with anticipation. My voice trembled slightly as I began to speak, but confidence surged within me. I shared my story, the betrayal, the fight for justice, and the power of community. I could see nods of understanding, the flicker of recognition in their eyes. This was more than just my journey, it was a collective movement toward change, toward standing up against injustice. In that moment, I knew my purpose extended beyond my own experience. I had to inspire others to find their voices, to stand against the tide of complacency. The laughter that once mocked us had transformed into a call for action. Together we can create a culture of accountability, I urged, my heart racing with fervor. Let's be the change we wish to see in our workplaces and beyond. As the applause erupted, I felt a surge of gratitude and hope. I was no longer defined by my past but propelled forward by the promise of a brighter future. The echoes of our collective resolve filled the air, and I knew this was just the beginning. I stepped down from the stage, my heart full, knowing that I would continue to fight for integrity and justice, not just for myself but for everyone. Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell.